Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's training on strategies to support routines and schedules in the home. Let's begin with introductions. My name is Ingrid Johnson Quesada. I am a behavior support liaison and school psychologist with WOCSEP.
And my name is Lisa Torres, and I'm a program specialist with WOCSEP.
Let's take a moment to just explain who we are at WOCSEP. WOCSEP is your special education local planning agency who works in conjunction with your school district to provide a continuum of services and placements, staff and parent education, interagency collaboration, and administrative support that will ensure a high quality, individualized, free, and appropriate public education for individuals with disabilities. Feel free to visit our website at www.wocsep.org for further resources and supports. Next slide. The information presented as part of this parent presentation series reflects a broad introduction of the topics covered, incorporating best practices and evidence-based practices. A list of resources will be included for further information on the topic. Please feel free to contact us or reach out to your own school districts regarding questions specific to your child's education. Before we get started, we just want to give you a simple reminder that self-care is so important, especially during these times. Just remember to be patient with yourself, be patient with others. We have to make time to take care of ourselves first and fill our cups so that we have enough energy to care for others. Think about what you can do for your own self-care. Be intentional about it. Just think of some ways that you can incorporate some of these practices into your day to ground yourself. Okay, let's get started. Next slide. The topics covered today include strategies on how to structure a home learning environment, the importance of schedules and routines, and how to use visual supports to encourage students to stay on task. So when we look at the research, there's 5 evidence-based practices for classroom management, which can also be applied within the home learning environment. Today, we will be focusing on the first 2 evidence-based practices, which are highlighted in yellow. The first is identify and teach expectations, and the second is to establish procedures and structure. And we will be explaining how to implement these strategies in the home. We will also give examples of how visual supports can be paired with or used in place of verbal cues to provide your students visual information about a routine, an activity, a behavioral expectation, or a skill demonstration. So how do we apply evidence-based practices at home? Well, there are 3 questions that we need to be able to answer for our students. So the 3 things that our student needs to know are, what are my rules for learning at home? Where is my workspace and where do I put my things? And what am I going to do today? Which is, how much work am I going to have to do and what happens next? Our first tip focuses on answering the first question our student needs to know. What are my rules for learning at home? I want you to think about the rules for learning that you have already established in your home. What are those rules? Next slide. It's very important for us to set clear expectations for our students, regardless of where they're learning, because this will help increase their cooperation, compliance, and just overall general positive behaviors. Best practice guidelines is to have no more than 5 expectations and rules stated in a positive way. So we want to state our rules positively to tell our students what to do instead of what not to do. For example, quiet mouth versus no talking. It's also helpful to have visual classroom rules posted clearly in an area that's visible in your students' work area so that it can be easily referred to during learning times. think about where would be a good place to post those expectations for your student. Once you have established and posted those expectations, you want to make time to teach each expectation, model it, and have your student practice the expectation with opportunities for feedback on how they did. This is important because we want to teach our students what we want them to do and reinforce all of those positive behaviors we see. The use of when and then statements is an evidence-based behavior strategy, and you can use a when and then statement to clarify what behavior is expected of your student. A when and then statement clearly explains what you expect and the positive outcome that will happen. It also gives your student a choice about how they want to behave. It's phrased in a way that promotes a positive student mindset with the goal of achieving a positive outcome. Also, make sure you follow through with the then, because trust is involved, right? You are trusting your student to make a responsible choice, but your student is also trusting you to follow through. Make sure you follow through by letting them experience the positive outcome they work so hard for. So for example, for a student who is yelling at you, you could say, when you speak to me in a calmer voice, then we can talk this through. For a student who's having trouble with transitions, you could say, when your materials are put away, then you can take a break. For students that's frustrated with a math problem, you could say, when you pick up the paper you crumpled up, then I will show you how to work out this problem. Think about a recent situation where you could have used a when and then statement with your student. What could you have said differently that might have led to a more positive outcome? Next slide. So here are two examples of posted visual rules and expectations. Remember, our best practice guidelines is to have no more than 5 expectations and rules stated in a positive way. So on the left, you'll see an example of visual rules and expectations during learning time for a very young student. So those expectations are very concrete and visually represented. Sit in chair, quiet, work. On the right is a visual of work time rules for older students with 5 rules and expectations during learning time with reminders to be quiet, try your best, and ask for help. Next slide. Your student's teacher may have specific rules and expectations for distance learning, such as these examples, but it's a good idea to check in with your student's teacher and ask for a copy of the rules and expectations so that you can reinforce these same expectations in the home. So now that we've established and posted what the rules are in our home learning environment, we also need to be mindful of how important it is to regularly check in with your student during learning times. Continue to acknowledge that this is a difficult time, but you're going to get through it together. As much as possible, focus on having positive interactions with your student, as it will help you connect with them and strengthen those connections. There's so many ways to check in while your student is engaged in participating. One way to check in that's non-intrusive and doesn't require any verbal interaction is to quietly get your students' attention and give them a thumbs up, a high five, a fist bump, or a pat on the back. It also opens up communications in case your student does need support. For some of you with younger students, an adult may need to be next to them during all online activities, which naturally allows for frequent check-ins. For older students, an adult may be able to step away more often and check in every half hour or hour, for example, to see how things are going. The reality is that while you want your student to become more independent, they are still learning to navigate in a virtual learning environment, and we want to be intentional about checking in with them. Another simple and easy way to check in with your student is to provide them with a script. You can create this easily with a piece of paper, a pencil, and Post-its, just like in this example, and place it so that it's visible to whomever is providing support to your student during virtual learning times. This is a really easy way for your student to make a request using visuals without disrupting learning time. Some other great ways to check in on your student is to simply state what you see them doing, which often naturally leads to those opportunities to reinforce expectations and what you see them doing well. So you can say something like, I see you working in your space, you're doing such a great job. Or I heard you participate during math, that was so awesome. or just stating, I like how hard you're working. You can also check in and ask questions like, are you understanding your work? What assignment are you working on right now? Or did you post your work on Google Classroom? Finally, find as many opportunities to encourage and praise behaviors you want to see more of and that are easy for your student to do, like logging on at the right time, getting ready for school on time, and praise efforts to complete tasks. When you praise your student, use specific praise and describe those positive behaviors that you see. So instead of just saying great job, which doesn't tell your student what they did a great job doing, tell your student what specifically they did a great job doing. For example, great job getting started on your math work. Your student will make mistakes and that's okay. We want them to be able to adapt in difficult situations and bounce back. This builds resilience in your student when they're able to cope when faced with a difficult situation. I want to leave you with some important takeaways for your student. If I can see it, I can understand it. Tell me what to do instead of what not to do. And use my strengths and interests, because if your student finds activities more enjoyable, it will help keep their motivation high.
Tip number 2, where is my workspace and where do I put my things? These are very important questions to address when establishing a workspace for your student. So why is creating a visual and physical learning environment helpful? First, it sets up expectations for events that are going to happen within that environment. If the student knows and understands the expectation, this may reduce their anxiety. No surprises. Within the learning environment, we want to try to minimize distractions. And having a structured environment will help teach self-management with our students. So let's take a moment to pause and think about your student's current learning environment. Is there a desk or a tabletop in your house that your student is currently working from? Does the learning environment change daily, or are they able to keep it consistent? Does your student identify their desk or tabletop as the learning environment where they go to school or do their schoolwork? The learning environment is going to look different for each student. So when we're creating the learning environment, we want to try to reduce the amount of distraction while the student is working. Setting up the learning environment will help manage the amount of sensory input. So let's think about this. When we set up that learning environment, what is the student able to see around them? Are there a lot of people walking through their learning space? Are they able to look and stare out the window? Can they see the TV or maybe their toys or their video games? Let's think about the auditory input. Are they able to hear the TV on in the other room? Is someone listening to songs or listening to the radio? Or are family members talking too loud or too close to them when they're working? If there is too much sensory input, what can we do to eliminate or turn off some of those distractions? Can we move furniture to block out visual distractions? Could we close the curtain so they can't look out the window? Or maybe put a blanket over the toys in the area that's near them? Could they wear their headphones during virtual lessons to reduce auditory distractions within the home? We want the learning environment to tell the student what they are going to do in the area. So when I'm in my learning environment and I sit down, it's time for me to be a student. Some students may be able to manage having academic posters on the wall to reference when they're learning, or they might get distracted by the poster with the letters on the wall on the poster because they want to recite the alphabet. Sometimes allowing your student to decorate the space may motivate them to want to sit and stay at their desk. The work area should be big enough so they can put their laptop or their iPad down to access during virtual learning and also use their learning materials. We need to teach our students how to use their learning environment. So here we can see a folder that a family has used to help distract any visuals within the room. It also helps define the learning space for the student. Here are a few ideas for our students who are comfortable or more organized when sitting on the floor using a tabletop, desk, or even a tray. Here, we see a dining room table, and the family has used 3 towels to create boundaries for 2 different learning spots. So the blue towel in the middle will hold the students' materials, but also divides the table in half. So now we have 2 spaces for students to learn. In this photo, the family created the students' learning environment by using painter's tape to define the boundaries. A dedicated learning space at home can help nurture a child's creativity, enhance their focus, and increase their motivation. Managing school supplies. So kids need to learn to stay organized by keeping their space clean and clutter-free as possible. So when we look here at the photos, on the left, we have a folder. It says to do on the left-hand pocket, and on the right-hand pocket, it says finished. So we can place the students' material that they need to finish for their class on the left, and when they're done, they move it to the right side to the finished folder side. Here, we have 2 baskets, the same concept, to do on the left and finished on the right. So when they're finished with their work, they put it in the finished basket. So tip number 3, what am I going to do today? How much work am I going to do? And what happens next? Let's talk about creating a schedule to help our student to stay organized throughout the day. Many of our students learn best if they can see the information. Creating a schedule adds structure and predictability in a student's day. Take a moment to think how much you rely on your to-do list or writing in your daily planner. It keeps you organized and you feel accomplished when you have completed your to-do list. Our students feel the same way. Let's get them involved in creating and organizing their schedule for the day. Schedules come in many different formats. We can use objects, pictures, or writing out the information. When creating the schedule, we need to take into consideration other members of the family and how the schedule may impact each other. When creating the schedule, make sure to intermix preferred and non-preferred activities. We want to make sure the schedule includes their daily routines, school time, movement breaks, outside time, creative time, and time just to shut down the computer and relax their mind and perhaps meditate. Students may have trouble remembering how and what they need to do for the day. A schedule either written or incorporating pictures make it easier to understand, follow, and remember the expectations for the day. When we use a schedule, it helps students get used to their routine. The schedules will naturally vary slightly from day to day. The daily schedule may be similar enough to allow the child to become more comfortable and familiar with the routine. When a child is comfortable in their routine, they also may feel less anxious and need fewer reminders from you about what is expected. Also, it will be impossible to account for every change in the schedule that may happen. Change is a natural part of life, and it's good for students to tolerate changes. Initially, we will need to teach our student how to use this schedule. We will want to refer to the schedule often by pointing to the pictures of the words. We are doing math now. Next, we will take a break outside. If they get off task, we can redirect them back to the schedule and restate what they are to be doing now and what will happen next. We need to teach students how to use their schedule. The schedule provides information such as how much work am I going to do and what happens next. For some students, schedules may need to be hands-on in order to provide more information other than just the written word or the picture. So this here is an object schedule that we can use with our students. So what I would do here, when it's time for our student to brush their teeth, I would hand them their toothbrush and I would say, time to brush our teeth, and start to walk to the bathroom. Here's an example of a first then schedule. First, what we need to do now, then what we will do next. This tool is effective when activity 2 is either one of the student's reinforcers or a more preferred activity. It's important that activity 2 be started right after activity 1 has finished, or the student will not understand that finishing activity 1 is what allowed them to do activity 2. It's a motivational tool for building behavioral momentum through less preferred activities. For those students who are overwhelmed with too much information all at one time, we can chunk the information in small parts. This will help the student not feel overwhelmed with receiving too much information. So we can see here on the partial day schedule, the one on the left has 3 activities that they're going to do. And then the one here on the right, it gives a little bit more information, but it's not all day long. Here is a full day schedule. And in this schedule, they incorporated the time, they incorporated the picture in addition to the words. Some students may prefer to have their schedule in a daily planner or on a calendar or even on their phone. How can timers help my student during distance learning? Timers can be helpful to keep your learner on schedule. Timers can visually indicate how long a preferred or a non-preferred activity will last. This will help children who have difficulty moving from one activity to another and to anticipate and be ready for the change. If students know that an activity is almost over, they can begin to prepare to switch to the new activity. It can reduce the power struggle when it's time to transition to the new activity. Your response could be, the timer said it's time to stop. We need to put away our toys and get back to work. So we can put the blame on the timer that we need to move on to the next activity. So there's low-tech and high-tech timers that we can use with our students. We can see here, we can do a countdown with our fingers, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We could use Post-its with numbers on them, and they can be on their desk. And as we're doing that countdown, we can remove one Post-it at a time. And we can also use the sand timers here, also like hourglasses. And as the time goes on, the sand drops to the bottom. And then when the sand is all gone from the top, the activity is done. Some more high-tech timers here. So the one on the left is a visual timer, and we set the timer. And as time is ticking away, the red goes away until it gets back up to 0, and then the red area is gone. And that means that the activity is over or the timer is off. The one in the middle, the high-tech timer, it starts in green. As time moves on, it will go to yellow. And once it hits the red, it means that the time has stopped. And don't forget, you do have a timer on your phone as well. So you could set your timer on the phone when you're out in the community and you don't have these resources. Some apps that we've used on our phones that have been helpful with schedules. First, then Schedule, Visual Schedule is a good one. ChoiceWorks works nicely as well. Those two you do need to pay for. The visual timer that I showed you in the last slide is free, and you can go to an app store and download and put that on your phone. So we provided you a handout today, resources you can use for visual supports. And so if you need more information, you can reference this. Here are some common questions parents have asked in regards to routine and schedules. Where can we purchase pictures to help us with the visual schedules at home? I suggest reaching out to your student's teacher to see how they can help you get pictures and how to use them in their home. If students might be familiar with the pictures that they use at school that you can incorporate in your home. I think using magazines, cutting out pictures from magazines. Google is a great resource. Google an image, they have really nice pictures. You can also go to the website called Do to Learn for free printable pictures. And on the next slide, we'll be giving you that website.
Another question that parents commonly ask is, how do I deal with the transitions in online sessions and keep my student engaged when there are technical difficulties that require them to wait? It would be a good idea to collaborate with your child's teacher, share that it's been difficult to keep your child engaged when there is prolonged wait times, and then develop a plan together. But a simple way to keep your child engaged, especially during anticipated wait and transition times, is to have them wait briefly for as long as they can successfully wait patiently. So that could be a matter of seconds versus minutes, and that just depends on your student and how long that they can wait. Then you can use specific praise, saying something like, "Good job waiting, let's take a short break now." When the break is over, I will say it's time to work. Allow your student to take that short break to access something that's fun and reinforcing so that your student is engaged in a fun activity while waiting. And then when you hear the teacher getting ready to move on, you can give your student a warning like 10 more seconds and your break is over to help with that transition. It may be a good idea to plan ahead before the school day starts and have a menu of some fun reinforcing choices. So you could either have it written, you could have a visual representation of what those activities are, or both, or you could have the actual object. It just depends on your student to let them know what's available for those break times. If the transition or the wait time is going to be longer because of bad connectivity or connection through the platform, it's not going to be productive to have your student wait because of the length of time it takes to troubleshoot to get connected again. So just have them engage in a fun activity while you access the teacher's lesson plan for that day. You can reach out to your student's teacher that you couldn't reconnect, and then just move on with activities that your student is able to do without direct instruction based on the lesson plan for the day.
Here are some great resources that you can reference to gain more information about setting up routines and visual schedules, autism-focused intervention modules, also the Captain Autism Professional Training and Information Network. And here is the website for Do to Learn, so you can print icons for your student in the home to create a schedule. Here are a few more resources that you can access through a Google Drive that we set up for a daily schedule template. Also, this is a YouTube video on how to organize yourself with a daily schedule. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We hope the information was helpful for you.